Whenever you are.
Good morning. Welcome. Today we have Mr. Steve Foster with us from MAG, which is the Management Advisory Group. We have partnered with MAG in reference to doing a compensation and classification study. His company is going to be looking at our jobs and at our pay scales. He's here today. We'll be going through some slides with you in reference to a survey that you need to complete. So at this time, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Steve Foster.
Thank you, John. And good morning. Just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about our company before we get started. We are a public sector consulting firm headquartered out of Fairfax, Virginia. And we've done lots of these types of studies in the past, and we're really looking forward to getting involved with the Sumter schools. This is a list of some of the services we provide. And as you can see, the classification and compensation study is at the very top. That's because this is the area we have the most experience with. So we're looking forward to working with Sumter schools on this, and getting you guys up to speed on your compensation. What I want to talk about today is the goals and the scope of the project. I want to give you a better understanding of what we're here to accomplish. I also want to talk about the role of the employee and the supervisor and how they work together as a team to complete the questionnaire. After that, I want to show you some pages directly from the questionnaire so that the first time you open up your very own, it's going to look somewhat familiar to you. And then at the very end, I just want to provide you with a timeline to show you how all the pieces of the study fit together. So for the scope of the project, we're looking at approximately 2,700 positions here in the county. I keep saying county, sorry, in the school district. And that breaks down into approximately 40 job titles. What we're trying to do, we want to make sure that we're getting the most current information possible directly from the employee and the supervisor. I cannot think of a better source of information than the person that's doing the job and the person that supervises that job. We're also going to address internal equity, and what I mean by that is before we go outside of the school district, we're going to take a look at all the jobs within the district and make sure that any jobs that have similar duties or responsibilities are grouped together for compensation purposes. Once we establish that, we're also going to go outside of the district, and we're going to check other school districts around the state and compare Sumter schools with those other districts so we can find out how competitive you all are within the market. And last but not least, the goal of this project is to provide an affordable implementation report that can be enacted to update your compensation. And the key phrase there is affordable. It's easy to come up with a plan where everybody gets a raise, but we have to be practical about it, and we have to make sure that we present something to the leadership that is affordable. Also want to point out what we're not trying to do with this study. We're not here to identify staffing levels. We're not here to reorganize departments or functions. We're also not going to be identifying individual performance or capabilities. The focus of this study is directly on the job itself and the core duties associated with each job. Anything to do with employee performance or capabilities, we're going to leave that in the hands of the supervisor. This next statement just have to be up front and let you know that we cannot guarantee a salary increase as a result of this study. But what I will tell you is we're going to gather as much new information as possible, and when we make our findings and our recommendations, any shortfalls that we come across will be highlighted in those reports. We want to make sure that leadership is able to make an informed decision based on our findings. We also will recommend a salary decrease. And the way that works is if we're doing our study and we're looking at a specific job, and that job is either at or above what we would have recommended, we're just going to stop right there and leave that job exactly where it's at. This is where I want to talk a little bit about the role of the employee and the supervisor and how they work together as a team to complete the questionnaire. Basically, the employee is going to start. They're going to log into their questionnaire. It's online. They're going to answer all the questions to the best of their ability, And then once they're completely done, they're going to pass that survey on to their supervisor for their review. Now, when the supervisor gets the questionnaire, they cannot change or delete anything that the employee has said. And we do that on purpose. When we're reviewing these questionnaires, we want to make sure that we're getting an unblemished perspective from both the employee and the supervisor. And by having it set up this way, it allows us to do just that. The questionnaire I'm referring to is called the Job Profile Questionnaire, JPQ for short. And again, it's our main source of gathering new information about each and every job within the scope of the study. We are hoping for maximum participation. I mentioned 100% here on the slide, but what I really mean is, as a minimum, we want to make sure that we get at least one completed questionnaire for every job title. Anything we get on top of that will be very helpful. So again, we're asking for maximum participation. There are two ways to complete the questionnaire. Either individually, which is just like it sounds. You log into your own questionnaire, you answer all the questions, and when you're done, you send it on to your supervisor. The other option is a group questionnaire, and that one does come with a few restrictions. In order to participate in a group questionnaire, everybody in the group has to have the same job title, they have to have the same supervisor, and they must be performing similar duties. So if you meet that criteria, and you'd rather get together as a group and everybody just complete one questionnaire, you can do that. One thing about a group questionnaire, though, it's by no means mandatory. So even if you participate in a group questionnaire, if at the end of that process you feel like that your voice wasn't being heard well enough to your satisfaction, you can still fill out an individual questionnaire as well. All right, this is how you get to our questionnaire. It's on our website. It's www.magintl.org. Make sure you use .org and not .com. The software that we use is somewhat sensitive, so there's only 3 browsers that are user-friendly, and that's Google Chrome, Firefox, and Microsoft Edge. Also, you have to make sure that you're completing this questionnaire on either a desktop or a laptop. It will not work if you try using a tablet or your phone. Just to let you know, if you try using one of those other options, you will be able to log in, but it's going to freeze up on you. So just make sure that you're using one of the 3 browsers that we recommend. So to get started, just scroll down to the bottom of the page. In the left-hand corner, there's a section called Job Profile Questionnaire, and there's a blue button that says Login. Click on that Login button, and the next page you're going to see, we have 2 steps to log into the questionnaire. This first one is the client area, so everybody's password is the same. It's going to be MAG, M-A-G, 2022. That's all caps, no spaces. Type that in, and then click on the green Go button. From there, it's going to take you to the organization page, and this is a drop-down menu. It's an alphabetical list of our clients, past and present. So scroll down to the S's, find Sumter Schools, click on that, and when you do, it's going to take you to your employee login page. For this, you're going to need your employee ID number. Go ahead and type that number into both boxes, both the employee ID box and also in the password box. So simply put, it's going to be the same number in both boxes. Click Login. And the next page that comes up, this is more of a verification page than anything else. The one you're seeing here is blank. When you log into your own questionnaire, a lot of this information is going to already be provided. You're going to see your name, your job title, your department, your hire date, and your promotion date. All we ask here is that you verify this information is correct. If you find any errors, please contact Human Resources. They'll make a note of that error, and we'll make a correction to the database. It's not something you can correct yourself within the questionnaire. There is going to be one box up top that will be blank, and that is the working job title box. And that is only because we realize that a lot of jobs have evolved over time, maybe even to the point that your job title itself could be somewhat obsolete. So if that's the case, and you have a better idea for what your job title should be, go ahead and put that into the working job title area. Now down at the bottom, this is where you're going to select your supervisor. And this is the person that you want to review your questionnaire. We recommend using your immediate supervisor, as long as that's also the same person that does your annual review or evaluation. So if the person that does your evaluation is separate from your supervisor, go ahead and choose the person that does your evaluation to do your review of your questionnaire. We have a drop-down menu for that as well. And when you click on that drop-down menu, there's an alphabetical list of all the supervisors. If for some reason you can't find your supervisor on that list, please let Human Resources know, and we'll get that fixed right away. But in the meantime, whether there's an error in the information up above or a missing supervisor down below, you can still work on the questionnaire. You can answer all the questions. You just won't be able to fully complete your questionnaire until you select a supervisor. So now that we've verified the information and selected a supervisor, the next step is going to be to open up the questionnaire itself. This is the very top of it, and there's a middle row of buttons there, and that middle button says Expand All Sections. The way our questionnaire is set up is it's basically one long page. So you're going to be scrolling through it, answering the various questions. Every time you log in, make sure that you click on this Expand All Sections button, and what that does is it opens up all of the information that there is to see for the questionnaire. If you forget to do that, it's going to be pretty obvious because you'll start scrolling through, and the questionnaire is going to look noticeably short. So that's not a problem. Just go back up to the top and click on the Expand All Sections button. Now there's two buttons at the very top that are important. We have a blue Complete button and a red Save button. And we call these floating buttons because no matter where you're at on the questionnaire, top, middle, or bottom, they're going to always be visible as a constant reminder for you. So to start out with, let's talk about the blue Complete button. Hopefully you only get to use the Complete button one time, and that's when you're completely finished with your questionnaire. You don't want to change any of your answers, and you're ready for your supervisor to do their review. If that's the case, you click on the blue button, and it releases the questionnaire from you and sends it on to your supervisor. If you click on that blue button and nothing happens, that means that there was something within the questionnaire that was mandatory that wasn't answered. So the good thing is at this point, since you've already hit the Complete button, all you have to do now is scroll through one last time, and anything that was required but was missed will now be highlighted in red. So just fix any of those red areas, come back to the Complete button, click on it again, and you'll be good to go. One last thing about the Complete button, there is one thing you can change after you hit that, and only one thing. If for some reason you need to change supervisors, you can do that. We've had situations in the past where a supervisor had to leave suddenly and somebody else had to step in and do the review. So if you find yourself in that situation, we want you to have the ability to be able to go into your questionnaire and change your supervisor if need be. All right, now for the red Save button. The reason we have that on is we highly recommend that you complete your questionnaire in more than one session if possible. If you try to do it all at once, it's going to take you at least 45 minutes. And there's some questions on here that require a lot of thought, a lot of effort. Other ones, they're a little bit easier to breeze through. So by being able to go in there on multiple sessions, you can answer the questionnaire in any order that you want. There's no set way to answer the questionnaire. If you want to go back in, answer some of the easier questions first, you can do that, and you come back to the tougher ones later. At some point, you have to answer them all. Anytime you work on your questionnaire, make sure you hit that red Save button on your way out, and that's going to save everything you've done up until that point. And the good thing about the Save button is if you answer a question one day and you come back in later and you want to change that answer, you still can. You have full editing capability of your questionnaire until you hit that blue Save button, or until you hit the blue Complete button. One last thing about the Save button that is very important is if you're working on a questionnaire and you decide you just need a bit of a break, plan on walking away from your computer for a minute or two, anytime you're going to do that, always make sure that you hit the Save button before you walk away. And the reason I say that is the software that we use has a security feature built in to where if there's no keyboard activity for 15 or 20 consecutive minutes, it's going to automatically log you out. So as long as you hit that Save button before you walked away, if you're going longer than you intended and you come back to a login screen, all you do is log back in and you pick up right where you left off. On the other side of that, if you did not hit the Save button and you walked away and you come back to a login screen, you're going to log back in, but everything you just did in that most recent session, you're going to have to redo. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, these buttons are constantly visible as a reminder, so make sure you're using that Save button to your advantage. All right, this is where we get into the questionnaire itself, and I want to start with the essential task list. This is the one page of the questionnaire that's going to take the most time and effort to complete. We're asking for a lot of information here. We're asking for anywhere from 1 to 10 of your most essential tasks, and we're asking that you break them down for us. So first off, we're looking for a brief description of the task. Once you get that taken care of, we're also interested in knowing how long does it take to do that task, and how often do you do it. So the example I like to use, let's just say that task number 1 is something you spend 4 hours working on throughout the week. And to keep everything nice and easy, let's say you're working a standard 40-hour work week. In that case, 4 out of your 40 hours are spent on this task, so that's 10% of your time. So that's what you're going to put for percentage. For frequency, we have a drop-down menu for that, and the choices are going to be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. There's all kinds of choices in there. It's very flexible. So all we ask is that whatever you choose for a percentage, make sure that that's a match for the frequency. So in the example I just gave, 4 out of 40 hours, that would be 10% of the time, and it would be weekly. The last column on this page is a rank column, and the reason we put that on there is we do not expect, as you're listing these tasks, that you're automatically going to put them in their order of importance. You might have put your most important task second or third down the page, which is fine. All we ask is that how many tasks that you have, that you rank them for us. So for example, if you have a total of 5 tasks on this page, please rank them for us 1 through 5 in their order of importance, with 1 being the most important. All right, that was the essential task list, and like I said, that's the one that's going to take you the most time and effort to complete, because we're asking for a lot of information. That's the page we're going to use when we're comparing your old job description to what you're doing currently. So it's a very important part of the questionnaire. From now, we'll move on to the job factors. There's 14 of these. They're all in the same format, and they're a lot easier to fill out, because what we're asking for here is we want to know how each one of these job factors apply to your job. So each job factor has its own subject. In this case, we're looking at data responsibility. And the way this works, the best way to approach these pages is you're going to read each one of the statements from top to bottom. These statements are listed by order of responsibility. So the top statement is the least amount of responsibility. The bottom statement is the most. So again, look at what the subject is. In this case, data responsibility. Starting with that top statement, see if this is the level of responsibility that applies to your job. If it's not, keep reading until you find the statement that's the best fit. Now, the way these job factors work, you can only choose one statement. It's going to check the box for the one that you chose. If you try to choose more than one, it's going to erase your previous statement and just keep your current one. So if for some reason you cannot find an ideal match, select the closest statement, and then come down below to the comments section, and please give us a little bit more information on how this particular job factor applies to your job. I do want to mention also, there is a comments section at the bottom of all these pages, and anybody that wants to add additional comments, we really do appreciate that. When we get these questionnaires back, we are going to put them into a database and crunch a ton of numbers, but before we do that, each and every one of these questionnaires is going to get reviewed by a team of analysts. And we're on the lookout for additional comments, because that's the kind of things that are going to help us with our findings and helping us make our determinations. So if you put the extra effort into this questionnaire, it's going to help us a lot. Also, for supervisors, while I'm on this page, I just want to mention that as you're doing a review, this is exactly what you're going to see from your employee. You're going to see each one of these pages. You're going to see the selection that they made, and you'll have the opportunity to either agree with that selection or make a selection of your own. Again, you can't change what they've said. I do want to point out that I've done a lot of these reviews myself in the past, and it's not unusual to see a slight disagreement between an employee and the supervisor, and usually that's for good reason. Let's just say that the employee on this page chose either statement 1 or statement 2, which is a lower level of responsibility. The supervisor comes in, does their review, and based on their additional knowledge and experience, they think there's more responsibility to this area than the employee indicated. So the supervisor might choose a 3 or a 4 for their selection. If we see that, again, that just tells us that the supervisor is just filling in the blanks. Maybe the employee is new to the job. Maybe they are in a hurry to fill out the questionnaire, or maybe they're just modest. But having that additional input from the supervisor is a big help. The only time I would ever get concerned would be as if there was a big difference between what the employee chose and the supervisor chose. So for example, Let's say that the employee took a look at this page and they thought they had a lot of responsibilities, so they went way down the page and chose statement number 7. When the supervisor comes in, they take a look at that and they say, no, that's way more responsibility than what it should be, so I'm going to choose statement number 2. During the review, if we see something like that, that's definitely going to raise some eyebrows, and we would get in touch with Human Resources, and you can get in touch with the individuals involved if need be. But that's a very rare occurrence, and I just kind of like to use that example to illustrate what the questionnaire is capable of. So if there was a lack of communication going on within the department, the questionnaire would point that out to us, and we'd be able to come up with a way to resolve that. So that was data responsibility. This is a list of all 14 of the job factors. So as you can see from that list, depending on your job, some of these are going to have a higher impact than others. We came up with this format because when we were designing our questionnaire, we're comparing so many different type jobs across so many different career fields. We wanted to make sure that we had at least some kind of common thread. So by having these 14 job factors to where we can measure levels of responsibility, it helps us out tremendously when it comes to the classification process. Just want to show you a couple of more of the job factor pages. Some of these are a little bit more unique than others. This first one here is called Education, Licenses, and Certification. And what we're looking for here is from the employee perspective. We want to know what you think the minimum requirements for your job should be at the entry level. I just want to emphasize we're not looking for your current qualifications. The focus on this is going to be on minimum requirements at the entry level. And again, this is your opinion. We just want to see if we need to update the requirements on your job description. Some jobs have gotten easier, some have gotten tougher over the years based on technology. So this is your chance to let us know what you think the minimum requirements should be. We also have a page that goes hand in hand with that one for experience requirements. Again, same thing, we're looking for minimum experience required for your job at the entry level. And just to repeat what I said earlier about the way these pages are set up, if you look at the very top for experience, it says no prior experience. By the time you get to the bottom, it's over 10 years of experience. So each statement is an increased level of experience as you go down the page. These next two are unique because everything I've shown up to this point, you can only make one selection. On these two, unavoidable hazards and sensory requirements, they truly are multiple choice. And that's because we realize that if you have one of these in your job, there's a good chance you have more than one. So we want you to be able to select as many as that apply to your job. And the last section of the questionnaire is our additional comments section. I want to go back a little bit and talk about the group questionnaire. The way that would work is one person would log on as the employee using their ID. Everybody would participate answering the questions as a group. And when the person that logged on gets to the very end here, we ask that you provide a list of the people that participated in the group questionnaire. That's very helpful to us because we like to track participation rates. And it's also helpful to your supervisor because when they get to the end of your questionnaire, they'll see that it was more than one person that participated. Also, for additional comments, I mentioned earlier on the essential task list that you're maxed out after 10 tasks. Well, for most people, that's more than enough. Most people are happy to be done after 5 or 6. But there are some who like to go beyond 10. If you have more than 10 essential tasks, you can list those additional tasks here in additional comments, so we can take a look at that. And last but not least, if you get all the way through the questionnaire, you get to section 22, and you feel like there's something that we didn't cover thoroughly enough, or possibly didn't cover at all, that's very important to your job, by all means, please put that information here under additional comments so we can take a look at that as well. Just want to show you a couple more things here in closing. If you're interested in saving an electronic copy of your questionnaire for your own personal records, you can do that. If you go back up to the very top, that middle row of buttons, just go over to the print button, click on that, and that's going to open up a new window. In that window, your questionnaire is automatically formatted to be saved as a PDF file. So all you have to do is provide a name and click on Save. Once you do that, you'll have your own personal record of your questionnaire, complete with all the questions and all your responses. For supervisors, I do want to point out a couple of things on the supervisor review process. Everything that I've shown you up until this point has been underneath the Home tab. That's where all the employee information is located. As a supervisor, to do your reviews, you're going to go one tab over to My Employees. And when you click on that, this is the page you're going to see. Any of your employees that selected you as their supervisor, you're going to see their name in the box down below at the bottom if they completed their questionnaire. If they're still working on it, they're not going to show up, only if they're completely finished. I do want to let you know that we do not have a way of electronically notifying the supervisor when an employee finishes their questionnaire, so it's up to the supervisor to monitor this. The first way to do this is just to go out to this page frequently, every day, every other day, go straight to this page here and see if any of your employees are showing up in the box down below. But a much more efficient way would be to make sure you're having very good communication between you and your employees. And the reason I say that is if your employee thinks they finished their questionnaire and they don't tell you, and you're checking this page every day and they're not showing up, the employee thinks they're done, you think they're still working on their questionnaire. So if your employee comes to you and says they're finished, and you click on this page and it's still blank, then you know that there's an issue. Typically, it's going to be one of two things. The employee may have completely finished their questionnaire, but if they did not hit that complete button at the end, it's just hanging out there in limbo. Or if the employee chose a different supervisor, it's not going to show up on your page. So as a supervisor, just go back to your employee one last time, ask them to log back in and confirm that they clicked on the blue complete button and also that they chose you as their supervisor. More times than not, that's going to solve these problems right there within the department. But if you go through this and you're still having issues, at that point, we ask that the supervisor contact Human Resources. They'll take a look at it, and if they need additional help, they'll contact us, and between us, we'll get it fixed for you. I also want to mention for supervisors that once you finish your own questionnaire, go ahead and click on the blue complete button. All that does is it releases your questionnaire to your supervisor. You can still come back to this page right here and do your evaluations. All right, that brings us to the timeline, and here's what we're looking at for the study. We're at the very top here, the questionnaire period. We have about a 2-week window, starting 2 weeks from this Friday, for March 3rd, to get the employee portion completed. After that, we're adding an extra week on top of that for the supervisors to finish up their reviews. So that means that we'll be getting these completed questionnaires back to our office by mid-March. That's when we start working on our classification review. That's where we're going to take all this new information that we have from these questionnaires. We're going to compare it to the old job descriptions, and we'll start making our updates. During that same time frame, we'll be conducting a market survey, and that's where we go out to other school districts around the state, and we get information from them on their compensation. That's going to allow us to see where Sumter Schools stands in the local market. Once we get those results back, that's when we'll start making our determinations based on our findings. We'll come up with our recommendations, and we'll put those recommendations into a draft report. The draft report is going to go directly to Human Resources to make sure everything is technically sound, and from there, it gets sent to all the department heads to make sure that we've addressed their concerns. Once we get the draft report written to the proper satisfaction, we'll be able to turn that into a final report, and that final report is what's going to get presented to your leadership so we can come up with a compensation plan for implementation. We're on a very fast track for this schedule. We're already on to mid-February. Our goal is to make that implementation plan take effect by the next fiscal year, which is going to be July 1st. So in closing, I just want to point out how important the questionnaire process is for this study, and we do consider it the foundation of this study. So we're looking for as much participation as possible, and we really do appreciate your efforts on this. So thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.